They walk among us. That thought alone is enough to unsettle even the most rational mind. People who look human, who speak the same language, who smile at the right cues and mimic gestures of empathy, yet something in them feels vacant. It is a chilling recognition, one that psychology alone cannot explain. Have you ever locked eyes with someone and felt nothing looking back? Not malice, not kindness, not even neutrality. Just absence, like staring into a mirror that reflects only form, not essence. Throughout history, mystics, philosophers, and even scientists have wrestled with this mystery. What animates us beyond biology? What grants the spark of awareness, the ability to love, to create, to suffer, to evolve? And more disturbingly, is it possible that some human beings are born without that spark at all? The ancient Gnostics whispered of empty vessels. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, spoke of souls choosing when or whether to incarnate. Carl Jung wrestled with the archetype of the hollow man, a figure who imitates life without ever truly embodying it. Even modern thinkers like Ingo Swann, and Albert Einstein pushed at the edges of consciousness, suggesting that awareness itself may be universal, not merely a byproduct of neurons. And yet, if consciousness is universal, why do some people feel cut off from it? Why do they move through life like actors on a stage, repeating lines without ever touching the depth of the script? You've likely felt it in everyday life. The coworker who drains you without a word. The relative whose eyes glaze when talk turns to meaning. The charismatic leader who charms a room yet leaves you hollow, as though their words had no roots. These encounters haunt us because they whisper an unspoken truth. Not every human vessel carries the same light. And here's the paradox. To even ask this question feels taboo. In the West, we are taught every human life is equal, that every person carries an immortal soul. And on one level, that is true. Yet, spiritual traditions across cultures, Buddhism, Gnosticism, Cayce's esoteric teachings, all hint at another layer, the possibility that incarnation is not automatic, that some bodies are born as shells, reflecting life's movements without holding its eternal core. So ask yourself, is this just metaphor? A way to describe narcissists, sociopaths, or the emotionally numb? Or could it be something more literal, that some people truly are born soulless? This journey will not offer easy answers. Instead, it will take you through history, psychology, and spirituality, weaving the insights of sages and scientists alike. Together, we'll explore why this idea exists, what it might mean for your daily life, and most importantly, how to protect your own light in a world where not every face you meet shines from within. So let me ask you, before we dive deeper, when you think back to those encounters that unsettled you, to the people who seemed strangely hollow, what if your intuition was right all along? What if you weren't imagining it? What if you were sensing the very mystery we are about to explore? Why some people are born without a soul. To understand why some people might be born without a soul, we must go back not just decades, but centuries, even millennia, to the roots of human spirituality. This question is not modern cynicism. It is ancient. It was asked long before psychology or neuroscience had names. And at the heart of those early whispers, we find the Gnostics. These mystics of the first centuries believed the visible world was not the ultimate reality. To them, the physical realm was a shadow, a flawed imitation of a higher divine order. And within this shadowed world, not every human carried the same essence. Some were pneumatics, beings infused with spirit, capable of awakening to divine knowledge. Others were psychics, half spiritual, half earthly. And still others, called hylics, were bound entirely to matter. Soulless in the deepest sense. Doesn't that sound eerily familiar? People who cannot go beyond material concerns, who cannot love deeply, who cannot reflect. The Gnostics weren't insulting humanity, they were naming reality. Different vessels carry different destinies. Centuries later, another voice emerged. Edgar Cayce, known as the sleeping prophet. In trance states, he gave thousands of readings, and among his most controversial teachings was this: incarnation is not guaranteed. Souls choose or are permitted to enter bodies. But sometimes, he warned, bodies are born without a soul fully inhabiting them. They function biologically, they grow, they speak. But the eternal self is absent. Cayce called them machines, animated by life force but not anchored by eternal consciousness. If that is true, the implications are staggering. That emptiness you have felt in someone's eyes may not be your imagination. It may be exactly what Cayce described, a vessel without an occupant. And he did not reveal this to make us afraid, but to awaken discernment. Because when you know who carries soul and who does not, you can protect your own light. Skeptics dismissed Cayce as a mystic out of time. But then came Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of the modern era. He didn't speak of soulless beings literally, but he uncovered something just as haunting: the persona and the shadow. The persona, the mask we show the world. The shadow, the parts we repress. But Jung went further. In some people, he said, the mask is not just a cover, it is all there is. Have you ever spoken to someone who seemed all surface and no depth? The words were right, but there was no gravity behind them. Jung would say, you met someone who has not integrated their soul. They live hollow, disconnected from the deeper self. And here the pattern sharpens. The Gnostics spoke of hylix, Cayce of empty bodies, Jung of masks without depth. Different languages, different centuries, yet the same whisper. Not every human carries the same inner reality. Even Albert Einstein, remembered as the archetype of rational science, admitted, the most beautiful and profound emotion we can experience is the sensation of the mystical. It is the source of all true science. He knew that behind equations there is mystery. Consciousness cannot be reduced to matter. And if consciousness is not bound to biology, then perhaps biology sometimes exists without consciousness. Does that mean Einstein believed in soulless beings? Not exactly. But it shows us that even the greatest minds recognized awareness is not universal, not evenly distributed, which brings us back to the haunting question: what if some people truly are born without that spark? Here lies the danger. Judgment. The point is not to condemn or demonize. The Gnostics held compassion. Cayce urged discernment without hatred. Jung warned against projection. Awareness does not make us superior. It makes us responsible. And that responsibility leads us to the present moment. If this idea has echoed through centuries, then what does it mean for us today? How do we tell the difference between someone still struggling to awaken and someone who has no inner light to awaken at all? And more importantly, how do we protect ourselves without falling into fear or cruelty? That is where our journey turns next. We are left with a haunting question. If echoes of soulless beings stretch across centuries, then how do we recognize them here and now in our everyday lives? They don't walk around with labels. They don't announce, I have no soul. On the surface, they may look perfectly normal, sometimes even charming, magnetic, successful. But the closer you look, the more you sense the hollowness behind the mask. Let's uncover the signs. Subtle, yet powerful. And as you listen, reflect on your own life. Perhaps you've already felt these things, but didn't have words for them until now. The first sign is the absence of emotional depth. Soulless beings can imitate emotions, but they cannot embody them. Think of a moment you shared something deeply personal, maybe grief or a joy of the heart. The person nodded, smiled, even said the right words, yet you walked away feeling unseen, unheard. A soulful person resonates. Their eyes soften, their presence holds you. But with the soulless, that resonance is missing. The second sign is the drain of energy. After time with them, you feel exhausted, as if your very life force has been siphoned away. This is not just toxicity. Psychologists like Carl noted that energy exchange is real. With soulful people, energy flows back and forth. Even when tired, it is a nourishing tiredness. But with the soulless, it only flows one way, out of you. The third sign is the recycled persona. Their lives play like a broken record. Their stories repeat, their lessons never change. They may attend workshops, recite self-help phrases, talk of growth, but nothing shifts. A soulful person at 40 carries scars and wisdom their younger self never had. A soulless one at 40 looks eerily similar to 20. Same mistakes, same shallow reflections. The fourth sign lies in the eyes. You've heard it. The eyes are the windows to the soul. Soulful eyes glow, not literally, but with depth, with presence, with curiosity. Soulless eyes feel flat, glossy, even attractive at times, but vacant. Prolonged eye contact leaves you unsettled, like staring into polished glass that reflects nothing back. The fifth sign is the mask of charm. Many soulless beings are masters of charisma. They know how to smile, flatter, mirror emotions. They can captivate a room, even build empires. But over time, their charm feels mechanical, like an actor who never leaves the stage. Convincing? Yes. Real? No. No. Now pause. Do these signs remind you of anyone in your life? A colleague, a friend, a family member, maybe even a partner? You are not alone. Many who awaken to this realization describe it as liberating, because suddenly the confusion makes sense, and terrifying, because it forces us to admit that not everyone we love or trust carries a soul. From a psychological lens, skeptics may say these are just narcissism, sociopathy, or emotional immaturity. And perhaps, in part, they are right. But what if those clinical terms are pointing to the same phenomenon mystics once called soulless? Could it be that science and spirituality are circling the same truth from different sides? The implications are profound. If some truly lack a soul, then discernment is not optional, it is essential. Without it, we give our deepest energy, trust, even love to those who cannot return it. And in doing so, we shrink. We dim our own light. But let this knowledge empower you, not frighten you. Recognizing the hollow allows you to choose wisely, to bless from a distance rather than entangle yourself in endless cycles of drain. And this brings us to the next challenge. If these signs reveal the hollow ones in our midst, how do we live among them without sliding into judgment or hatred? How do we protect our light without dehumanizing others? That is the deeper dimension we will now step into. By now, you may feel the unsettling weight of this idea pressing in. If soulless beings exist and the signs suggest they do, what are we supposed to do with that knowledge? How do we carry it without hardening our hearts, without slipping into judgment or cruelty? Isn't there a danger here that by labeling others soulless, we risk shrinking the very soul we are trying to protect? This is where discernment becomes both a spiritual practice and an ethical responsibility. And it begins with a subtle but crucial truth. To discern is not to condemn. Picture yourself walking through a garden at night. Some lanterns glow, others remain dark. To notice which ones shine and which ones do not is not hatred. It is simply observation. You don't kick the unlit lanterns. You don't scream at them for failing to shine. You acknowledge reality. This one carries light, this one does not. Recognizing the presence or absence of soul works the same way. Carl Jung warned us of projection, the danger of demonizing others while refusing to face our own shadow. He said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. If we call everyone soulless, we're not seeing them clearly. We are running from ourselves. And the mystics remind us of something deeper. Judgment binds us to the very frequency we despise. If we gossip about the hollow, if we ridicule them, hate them, obsess over them, we become entangled in their vibration. The Buddha taught hatred never ends by hatred, but only by love. Edgar Cayce urged, keep your heart clean, bless from a distance. Think about that. Your soul is not weakened by encountering emptiness. It is weakened by hating it, which means the real power lies in your response. You protect yourself not by attacking the soulless, but by refusing to mirror their emptiness. So what does this look like in daily life? Psychologists today speak of honest proximity or honest space. If someone drains you, you don't need to wage war. You don't need to unmask them publicly. You simply choose, will I stay close or will I step back? Both are acts of honesty. Both preserve your light. Maybe it's a family member who charms but never changes. You've spent years hoping they would awaken, only to leave drained every time. Discernment means acknowledging that truth. Saying, I will not give endless energy to someone who cannot return it. I bless them from afar. I hold compassion, but I do not confuse compassion with self-sacrifice, and that is not coldness. It is the warmest thing you can do for them and for yourself. Because by refusing to feed their emptiness, you refuse to become empty yourself. You stand as a living example of what it means to carry light with integrity. Einstein once said, a human being is part of the whole we call the universe. He experiences himself as separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. Soulless beings are the extreme of this delusion, utterly cut off from the flow of life. But those of us who still feel, still resonate, still love, our task is to remember the whole, to refuse bitterness, to stay connected. And here lies the paradox. The soulless end up teaching us about our own soul. Without them, we might never learn the discipline of discernment. Without them, we might never ask, what does it mean to carry light? What does it mean to stand in love when love is not returned? What does it mean to recognize emptiness without becoming empty ourselves? The answers are not simple. They require practice. They require vigilance. They require remembering that discernment is not a sword, but a shield that guards our essence, protects our energy, and ensures that the journey of our soul is not derailed by those who have none. So hold this truth gently. Recognizing the soulless is not about labeling them. It is about remembering yourself, keeping your flame alive, even in the presence of shadows. And with this foundation in place, we face the next step. How do we actively strengthen our soul? How do we nourish its growth, deepen its light, and thrive, even when the hollow walk among us? That is where we now turn. By now, we've uncovered a sobering truth. Soulless beings may exist. Our task is not to judge them, but to protect and strengthen our own light. Yet awareness alone is not enough. Knowledge without practice is like a lamp without oil. It cannot shine. So the question becomes, how do we actually nurture our soul in a world that often feels draining, chaotic, and heavy with shadows? The good news is this: the practices that keep our soul alive are not exotic. They are timeless, simple, and available to us all. You don't need a monastery or a mountain. What you need is presence, intention, and courage. One of the most powerful practices is meditation. Not a trend, but an ancient discipline of remembering. When you sit quietly, breathing deeply, letting thoughts pass like clouds, you are reminding your soul that it is not the noise. It is the awareness behind it all. Carl Jung himself admitted, when he stopped analyzing and simply sat in silence, insights arose that logic alone could never bring. Meditation is reclaiming inner space. It anchors you where imitation cannot reach, in direct connection to consciousness. The second practice is journaling. Writing not just as memory, but as dialogue with the soul. When you record your fears, your desires, your doubts, your dreams, you are conversing with your unconscious. Jung guided patients to write as a way of encountering their shadow. Edgar Cayce advised seekers to track patterns and lessons across time. So when something unsettles you, an encounter that drains you, or eyes that feel empty, don't dismiss it. Write it. Ask yourself, what did I feel in their presence? What did my intuition whisper? What part of me reacted? Over time, the journal becomes a mirror. It shows you not only signs of soullessness in others, but resilience of soul within yourself. The third practice is community. Soulless beings isolate us by design. They thrive when we feel confused, doubting our own perception, convinced we are alone. The antidote? Soulful companionship. Seek those whose eyes light up when you speak your truth. Those who can sit with both your joy and your pain. Those who make you feel more alive simply by being near. Psychology calls it co-regulation. Ancient traditions call it sangha, the community of practice. Alone, a flame can flicker. Together, flames become a fire that shadows cannot extinguish. Fourth, we must care for the body. If the soul is the flame, the body is its lantern. Neglect the lantern, and the flame struggles to shine. Einstein himself, though devoted to the mind, found balance in simplicity. Long walks in nature, all beneath the stars, rhythms of rest and nourishment. When the body is supported, the soul has space to radiate. And finally, boundaries. The art of honest distance. This is often the hardest because it can feel unkind. But boundaries are not rejection. They are they say, I honor my soul too much to let it be drained without end. Boundaries are spiritual medicine. They allow closeness where there is resonance and distance where there is emptiness. And as Cayce reminded us, blessing from a distance is still blessing. Pause and imagine this with me. 10 minutes of meditation each day. 10 lines of journaling each week. 1 act of soulful community. 1 gesture of care for your body. 1 clear boundary with someone who drains you. Imagine the strength of your soul after a month, a year, a lifetime. Could any soulless being truly dim your light? These practices do more than protect. They expand you. They grow your capacity for soul. They remind you that you are not here merely to survive encounters with emptiness. You are here to embody fullness. You are here to prove that the spark of consciousness is real, radiant, indestructible. And now, with these practices in hand, we stand ready for the final layer. If soulless beings walk among us, what do they teach us about the destiny of humanity itself? What role do they play in the larger story of evolution, awakening, and the future of consciousness? That is the mystery we step into next. At this point, a deeper question begins to rise. If soulless beings truly exist, then why? What possible role could emptiness play in a universe built on consciousness? Why would creation allow vessels without light to walk among us, breathing, speaking, moving through life as if they belonged, yet carrying no spark within. Here is where mystery touches destiny. Because as unsettling as it sounds, the existence of soulless beings may not be an accident. It may be part of a larger design, one we can only see when we step back and view the whole tapestry of human evolution. The ancient Gnostics believed the presence of hylics, those bound entirely to matter, forced the soulful to awaken. Without contrast, there is no recognition of light. Without shadow, we forget the brilliance of the sun. They taught that the soulless were not villains in a cosmic drama, but catalysts, silent teachers whose emptiness sharpened the longing for fullness in others. Think about it. Haven't you discovered the depth of your own soul most clearly only after encountering hollowness in someone else? Edgar Cayce echoed this in modern words. He described Earth as a school for souls, a place where lessons repeat until they are mastered. But he hinted not every body carries a student inside. Some are empty classrooms, structures without learners. And paradoxically, these empty classrooms remind the true students why they came. They push us toward vigilance, compassion, and strength of purpose. Carl Jung, too, touched this mystery in his archetypes. The hollow man, the mask without depth, became more than an image of individual pathology. It became a warning of collective danger. Jung feared a future where mass culture and blind conformity would produce generations more persona than person, more shadow than substance. His haunting question, would humanity become soulful or drift into soullessness as a species? Look around today. In an age of artificial intelligence, virtual identities, and endless masks of social media, the boundary between soulful presence and hollow mimicry grows thinner by the day. The danger is not only that some are born soulless, but that many with souls slowly forget to live from them. A world of glowing screens but dimmed spirits. That is the destiny we must resist. Einstein once said, "A human being is part of a whole called by us universe. He experiences himself as something separated, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness." Soulless beings represent the extreme of this delusion, utterly cut off from the flow of life. The task of the soulful is liberation. To awaken not just ourselves, but humanity itself from the prison of separateness. Could it be that the soulless exist not merely as threat, but as challenge woven into destiny? They test whether we will collapse into fear and judgment, or rise into discernment and love. They push us to strengthen our light until it cannot be dimmed, to grow our souls until they shine not only for ourselves, but for the world. Consider this. Every time you recognize hollowness without hating it, you anchor love. Every time you set a boundary without cruelty, you model soul. Every time you choose compassion without self-betrayal, you tilt humanity toward light. And maybe this is why you are here, listening now. Maybe you felt drained, betrayed, unsettled by people who seemed empty. Maybe you've asked yourself, am I crazy to feel this? And maybe now you see you are not crazy. You are awake. You are part of the generation called to carry light in an age of shadows. This is the greater mystery. Soulless beings exist not just to unsettle us, but to remind us who we truly are. They draw the line so we can choose the other side. They whisper absence so we can sing presence louder. They remind us that humanity's destiny is not guaranteed. It is forged. Choice by choice. Soul by soul. And so, as our journey nears its end, we bring it all together. We have traced the history, uncovered the signs, explored the ethics, practiced the disciplines, and now we stand with the real question before us. Not simply, why are some people born without a soul? But rather, what will you do with the soul you have? We began this journey with a haunting question. Why are some people born without a soul? Along the way, we walked with the Gnostics, who divided humanity into vessels of spirit, half-light, and matter alone. We listened to Edgar Cayce, who warned that some bodies live like machines without eternal consciousness. We heard Carl Jung, who revealed how some wear masks so complete, they never touch the soul beneath. And even Einstein reminded us that our sense of separateness is a prison, one we must awaken from if we are to live whole. From these voices, past and present, we reached a startling truth. Not everyone carries the same spark. Some grow, evolve, deepen. Others recycle, repeat, drain, and mimic without ever embodying. They are not villains in a storybook sense. They are simply absent. But awareness of soulless beings is not a call to hatred. It is a call to discernment, to choose wisely where you place your love, your trust, your energy. Because the danger lies not in their existence, but in how we react to them. Respond with bitterness and your own light dims. Obsess over them and you drain yourself twice. This is why practices like meditation, journaling, soulful community, caring for the body, and setting clear boundaries are not luxuries. They are lifelines. They keep the flame alive when the world feels dim. And beyond practice lies purpose. Every brush with hollowness reminds us to embody fullness. Every encounter with emptiness is an invitation to stand firm in presence. So I leave you with both a challenge and a promise. The challenge: do not let soulless beings harden you into cynicism. Do not let their emptiness infect you with despair. The promise: if you hold your light with integrity, nurture your soul with devotion, then no shadow can extinguish you. In fact, your light grows brighter in the presence of absence. Now I turn the question to you. Have you ever encountered someone whose eyes felt empty? Someone whose presence drained you? Someone whose charm seemed mechanical? Did this message put words to what your intuition has always known? Share your story in the comments below, because your voice may be the mirror someone else needs if they finally trust their own perception. And if this journey resonated with you, if it gave you clarity, strength, or even just language for feelings you've carried silently, please take a moment to support this channel. Like this video if you found it valuable. Share it with someone who needs the reminder that their soul is real, radiant, and worth protecting. And most importantly, subscribe to Awakened Wisdom so together we can continue exploring truths most people fear to name, but you have always sensed. Remember, as Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That privilege is yours. Guard it, live it, and let your light guide the way for those still wandering in the dark.